when it's on the page, and you have guys like Kurt Russell and Bill Paxton and Val Kilmer. The cast in that film alone, all of them, and a lot of them are gone today.
What if one of the most iconic Western films ever made has been hiding its biggest secret in plain sight for more than 3 decades? Millions of people have watched Tombstone countless times, memorized the legendary one-liners, and celebrated its unforgettable characters. But according to Sam Elliott, there was something most audiences never truly noticed. It wasn't hidden in a deleted scene. It wasn't revealed in a director's commentary. It was woven quietly into the heart of the film itself, waiting for viewers to connect the pieces. And once you see it, it's almost impossible to watch Tombstone the same way again. For years, fans believed they understood exactly why Tombstone became one of the greatest westerns ever made. They praised the legendary performances, the intense gunfights, and the unforgettable chemistry between the cast. Names like Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, and Sam Elliott became permanently linked to the film's enduring legacy. Every rewatch seemed to reveal another memorable quote or another brilliantly crafted scene. Yet while audiences focused on the larger-than-life heroes and villains, something much quieter was happening beneath the surface, something that helped transform the movie from a simple Western into a story that continues to resonate decades later. Sam Elliott was never the loudest voice in the room, either on screen or off. Throughout his career, he built a reputation for choosing substance over spectacle, bringing a calm authority that audiences instinctively trusted. When he joined Tombstone as Virgil Earp, he wasn't simply playing another cowboy. He approached the role with the kind of authenticity that came from years of understanding the mythology and the reality of the American West. While other performances often grabbed the headlines, Elliott's work quietly anchored the film, giving the chaos around him a sense of emotional weight that many viewers appreciated without fully understanding why. As the years passed, Tombstone only grew more popular. New generations discovered the film through streaming platforms and television reruns, while longtime fans continued debating every scene online. Countless interviews, retrospectives, and behind-the-scenes stories surfaced over time, each adding another piece to the movie's fascinating history. But hidden among those conversations was a recurring idea that rarely received the attention it deserved. Sam Elliott occasionally hinted that audiences often celebrated the wrong moments, overlooking the emotional foundation that made the film truly unforgettable. It wasn't that viewers misunderstood the movie, they simply weren't looking in the right place. The more closely people revisited Elliott's reflections, the clearer it became that his perspective wasn't about exposing a scandal or revealing a secret feud. Instead, it challenged one of the biggest assumptions fans had held for years. What if the character everyone remembered wasn't actually the one holding the story together? What if the real strength of Tombstone came from something far less obvious, quietly shaping every major decision from beginning to end? That possibility has sparked countless discussions among devoted fans, but the deeper explanation goes much further than most people realize. And when the cast themselves began sharing what was really happening behind the cameras during the making of Tombstone, the hidden meaning behind Sam Elliott's words became even harder to ignore. But that was only the beginning of a much bigger revelation. By the time Tombstone entered production in the early 1990s, it already carried enormous expectations. Westerns were no longer dominating Hollywood the way they once had, and many believed the genre had lost its place with modern audiences. The filmmakers knew they weren't simply making another cowboy movie. They were trying to prove that stories about honor, loyalty, and sacrifice could still captivate millions. Behind the scenes, however, the production was anything but smooth. Creative disagreements, scheduling challenges, and unexpected changes created an atmosphere of uncertainty that could have derailed the entire project. Yet amid that chaos, Sam Elliott remained remarkably consistent, focusing less on the distractions surrounding the film and more on ensuring that Virgil Earp felt like a real man rather than a Hollywood legend. That commitment to authenticity wasn't accidental. Long before cameras rolled, Elliott had built a career on portraying characters who spoke softly but carried enormous emotional weight. He understood that true strength didn't always come from dramatic speeches or explosive confrontations. Sometimes it was found in silence, in restraint, and in the quiet responsibility of protecting those around you. As Virgil Earp, he embraced those qualities completely. While audiences naturally gravitated toward Doc Holliday's razor-sharp wit or Wyatt Earp's fearless reputation, Elliott was constructing a different kind of hero, one whose greatest battles weren't fought with a revolver, but with the burden of leadership. It was a performance that rarely demanded attention, yet without it, much of the story's emotional balance would quietly disappear. As filming continued, something unusual began happening among the cast. Instead of competing for the spotlight, many of the actors started treating their characters like members of a genuine family. That chemistry wasn't manufactured through clever editing or carefully staged publicity. It developed during long days on set, where trust became just as important as talent. Sam Elliott's calm professionalism helped create an atmosphere where every performance could breathe naturally. He wasn't interested in stealing scenes. He was interested in making every scene believable. Years later, several people connected to the production would reflect on how that approach influenced the entire tone of the movie, even if audiences never consciously noticed it. Meanwhile, viewers became captivated by the film's unforgettable action sequences. The gunfights, the tension-filled standoffs, and Val Kilmer's unforgettable portrayal of Doc Holliday quickly became the defining images associated with Tombstone. Those moments deserved every bit of praise they received, but they also had an unintended consequence. They drew so much attention that the quieter emotional framework supporting the story slipped into the background. The relationships between the Earp brothers, their shared sense of duty, and the sacrifices made before a single shot was fired often became secondary in the minds of fans. Ironically, those quieter moments were exactly what Sam Elliott believed gave the film its lasting power. As the years passed and audiences revisited Tombstone, a pattern slowly emerged. People who watched the film repeatedly often found themselves appreciating Virgil Earp more with each viewing. His calm decisions, subtle expressions, and unwavering loyalty suddenly carried far greater meaning than they had during the excitement of a first watch. It was almost as if the movie itself had been inviting viewers to mature alongside it, revealing deeper emotional layers only after the spectacle had faded. That's when many longtime fans realized they hadn't simply been watching an action film. They had been witnessing a story built on quiet responsibility, something that Sam Elliott had understood from the very beginning. But just when audiences were beginning to recognize the hidden importance of Virgil Earp, an even more surprising story started to surface from behind the scenes. One involving creative decisions, unexpected conflicts, and a turning point that almost changed Tombstone forever. As Tombstone moved deeper into production, the challenges behind the camera became almost as dramatic as the story unfolding on screen. What audiences saw as a confident, tightly crafted Western was, in reality, a film fighting to find its own identity. Creative disagreements emerged over how the story should be told, how the characters should be portrayed, and what emotional tone would define the movie. The pressure was immense because everyone involved understood that a single wrong decision could turn an ambitious Western into another forgotten Hollywood experiment. Few people watching the finished film would ever suspect just how uncertain its future once appeared. One of the biggest turning points came when leadership behind the production changed during filming, forcing the cast to adapt almost overnight. Instead of allowing uncertainty to spread across the set, experienced actors like Sam Elliott relied on their professionalism to keep performances grounded. Rather than becoming distracted by events they couldn't control, Elliott focused on maintaining the emotional consistency of Virgil Earp. That quiet discipline proved invaluable, because while cameras continued rolling, the audience would never know that significant creative adjustments were taking place just beyond the edge of the frame. Looking back, many have credited the dedication of the cast with preserving the film's authenticity during one of its most vulnerable moments. At the same time, another fascinating misconception was beginning to take shape among audiences. As soon as the movie was released, much of the conversation centered on the unforgettable charisma of Doc Holliday. Val Kilmer delivered a performance that quickly became legendary, filling the screen with humor, danger, and heartbreaking vulnerability. His lines were quoted endlessly, his scenes became fan favorites, and critics praised him as one of the greatest characters ever to appear in a Western. While that recognition was well-deserved, it also unintentionally shifted attention away from the careful structure supporting the entire story. Sam Elliott would later suggest that many viewers became so captivated by the film's brightest moments that they overlooked the quieter relationships, giving those moments their emotional impact. The bond between the Earp brothers was never designed to dominate every conversation after the credits rolled. Instead, it functioned as the emotional backbone holding everything together. Virgil wasn't simply Wyatt's older brother. He represented stability in a world descending into violence. He carried responsibility without demanding admiration, made difficult decisions without expecting praise, and constantly placed the safety of others ahead of his own comfort. Those qualities rarely generate the loud applause that dramatic shootouts receive, but they create something even more valuable, a reason for audiences to care about the people involved. Without that foundation, even the most spectacular confrontations would lose much of their emotional weight. Years after the film's release, fans began revisiting interviews with Sam Elliott and noticing a recurring theme in the way he discussed Tombstone. He rarely spoke about fame, iconic dialogue, or which scene received the biggest applause. Instead, he emphasized honesty, character, and the importance of portraying people as they might have truly existed rather than as larger-than-life legends. It was a subtle perspective, but one that completely changed how many viewers interpreted the film. Suddenly, moments that once seemed ordinary carried new significance, revealing a level of emotional craftsmanship that had been hiding in plain sight all along. Yet even that wasn't the full story. Because once the excitement surrounding the movie settled, another reality began to emerge. One that revealed how the legacy of Tombstone affected the lives and careers of its cast in ways no one could have predicted. And for Sam Elliott, that unexpected aftermath would make his reflections on the film even more meaningful than anyone first realized. When Tombstone finally reached audiences, few people could have predicted the extraordinary journey it was about to take. The film earned respect upon release, but its true reputation wasn't built overnight. Instead, it grew steadily over the years, passed from one generation of movie lovers to the next. Television broadcasts, home video collections, DVDs, and eventually streaming services introduced the story to millions who hadn't experienced it in theaters. With every new audience came fresh discussions, new theories, and countless debates about which character truly defined the film. Yet as the legend of Tombstone continued to expand, one surprising pattern became impossible to ignore. The more people revisited the movie, the more they discovered details they had completely missed the first time. Sam Elliott found this evolution fascinating because it reflected something he had believed from the beginning. Great films don't reveal everything at once. They reward patience. On an initial viewing, audiences are naturally drawn toward explosive action, unforgettable dialogue, and dramatic confrontations. But after the excitement settles, quieter truths begin to emerge. Expressions that seemed insignificant suddenly carry emotional weight. Conversations that once felt routine reveal hidden meaning. Decisions made without fanfare become the moments that shaped the entire story. Elliott understood that Tombstone wasn't simply asking viewers to admire legendary gunfighters. It was inviting them to understand the cost of becoming one. One of the most overlooked aspects of the film was the emotional burden carried by Virgil Earp. Unlike characters driven by revenge or personal glory, Virgil constantly weighed every decision against the safety of his family and the future of the town. Every confrontation threatened not only his own life, but the lives of those standing beside him. That responsibility created a quiet tension running beneath nearly every scene he appeared in. He wasn't fearless because he lacked fear. He was courageous because he acted despite it. Many fans overlooked that distinction during their first viewing, but years later, it became one of the reasons his performance continued to resonate with audiences who appreciated subtle storytelling. As interviews with the cast resurfaced over the years, another truth became increasingly clear. There was never a competition among the actors over who would become the film's biggest star. Instead, they understood that each performance depended on the strength of the others. Kurt Russell provided determination, Val Kilmer delivered unforgettable charisma, Bill Paxton brought vulnerability, and Sam Elliott offered unwavering stability. Remove any one of those elements, and the emotional balance of the story begins to shift. That realization caused many longtime fans to reconsider why the film had endured for so long. Perhaps its greatest achievement wasn't creating one iconic character. It was creating a family whose relationships felt authentic enough that audiences believed every sacrifice they made. Ironically, the movie's growing popularity also fueled one of its biggest misconceptions. As internet discussions exploded and memorable quotes spread across social media, the loudest moments became the most celebrated. Clips of Doc Holliday's sharp wit or Wyatt Earp's fearless determination circulated endlessly, while the quieter emotional framework received far less attention. This was exactly the point Sam Elliott had hinted at over the years. The scenes people replayed the most weren't necessarily the scenes that made the film unforgettable. They were simply the easiest to remember. The Real Foundation had been quietly supporting those unforgettable moments all along, hidden beneath the excitement where few viewers thought to look. Then something unexpected happened. Historians, film critics, and devoted fans began re-examining the real events that inspired Tombstone, comparing Hollywood's portrayal with documented history. That deeper investigation revealed another layer to Sam Elliott's perspective, one that suggested the movie's greatest secret wasn't just about a character or a performance. It was about understanding why the story continued to resonate decades after the final gunshot echoed across the screen. And that final truth would change the way many fans viewed Tombstone forever. As conversations surrounding Tombstone continued to evolve, a deeper realization slowly began to take shape among both film historians and devoted fans. The movie had never claimed to be a perfect historical record. Like many Hollywood productions inspired by real events, it blended documented history with dramatic storytelling, reshaping certain moments to create a more compelling cinematic experience. Yet that creative freedom wasn't what fascinated Sam Elliott the most. What captured his attention was how audiences often became so focused on separating fact from fiction that they overlooked the emotional truth the film was trying to communicate. In many ways, that emotional truth proved far more powerful than a perfectly accurate timeline ever could. The real Wyatt Earp, Virgil Earp, and the people surrounding them were extraordinarily complex individuals whose lives couldn't be compressed into a 2-hour film without difficult choices. Every screenplay requires characters to be simplified, scenes to be condensed, and events to be rearranged. Elliott understood that reality better than most because he had spent decades portraying historical and Western figures with honesty rather than exaggeration. His goal was never to convince viewers they were watching a documentary. Instead, he wanted them to believe they were watching real people making impossible decisions under extraordinary pressure. That distinction may seem subtle, but it fundamentally changes how the story is experienced. When longtime fans began revisiting Tombstone with that perspective in mind, something remarkable happened. Scenes that once seemed like simple transitions suddenly became emotional turning points. Quiet exchanges between the Earp brothers carried the weight of years spent protecting one another. Moments of silence communicated fear, loyalty, and exhaustion more effectively than lengthy speeches ever could. Even the smallest gestures, a reassuring glance, a calm voice during a crisis, or a reluctant acceptance of responsibility, revealed the invisible threads holding the family together. Those weren't moments designed to generate applause in a crowded theater. They were moments designed to make the audience feel something long after the credits had rolled. Perhaps that's what Sam Elliott meant when he suggested that most fans never fully figured out what made Tombstone so enduring. It wasn't merely the legendary dialogue or the unforgettable gunfights, impressive as those elements remain. It was the film's quiet insistence that true heroism rarely announces itself. The strongest person in the room isn't always the loudest, the fastest, or the most celebrated. Sometimes it's the one carrying responsibilities no one else even notices. Virgil Earp embodied that idea throughout the story, standing as a steady force while others naturally drew the spotlight. His presence reminded viewers that leadership often exists in silence, and sacrifice frequently goes unrecognized until much later. That message has only become more meaningful as the years have passed. Modern audiences, accustomed to larger-than-life action and constant spectacle, often discover that Tombstone offers something increasingly rare, a story where character matters as much as conflict. Every rewatch uncovers another layer of emotion, another overlooked expression, another quiet decision that changes the meaning of everything that follows. It explains why the film continues attracting new generations decades after its release, not simply because of nostalgia, but because its emotional foundation remains timeless. Yet even after all these years, one final question still lingers. If Sam Elliott believed the film's greatest strength had been quietly hiding in plain sight all along, what was the ultimate lesson he hoped audiences would finally understand? The answer brings together everything the cast achieved, everything the filmmakers fought to preserve, and the reason Tombstone remains one of the most beloved westerns ever made.